So welcome everyone to our second session of the day. This session is on the importance and benefits of empowering women in tech in a historically male-dominated sector, whether it's as founders of startups, coders and developers, or as corporate leaders. With perspectives ranging from intergovernmental organizations, ICT SME, representative bodies, skills-building social enterprises, to tech-enabled businesses. This panel will share insights on how a diverse workforce is an essential ingredient for competitiveness today and in the future. Please welcome our moderator for this session, Ms. Diana Hollmann, team leader at GIZ.
Thank you very much, and I also invite the panelists to already come on stage, please. Please. Samir? Samir? Please, yeah. That's my chair. Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Look how dark it is. The light is halfly off in the room, right? You probably think about what's wrong, where's the light switch, and how I can turn it off, right? It's the impulse you have when half of the room is dark. Actually, leaving the light turned off and not looking for the light switch and not turning it off, that it seems what we are doing when it comes to involving females in the workforce in the MENA region. In the MENA region, we actually have only 20% workforce participation. That's the lowest globally. And it has been over the past decades that way. In Jordan, it's even ranging around 15%, 15%. And this is a bit of an interesting situation, because if we look at university enrollment rates, women actually exceed males in the universities. So we have 43% women and only 40% males in tertiary education. Also, if we look at STEM graduates, in the MENA region, we have STEM graduates, so science, technology, engineering, and maths. Women, we have 34 to 56% in the MENA region. That's actually more than in the US or in Europe. So it's quite an interesting situation, and that is what we want to discuss today in this panel. So we want to talk about two major questions. The first question is, why do we need to find the light switch in terms of involving females in the workforce? And the second question is about how we can actually turn it on. So let's shed light on that topic. Thank you. And first, is this working? No? Test, test, test.
I think this one is 1, 2, 3.
Thank you. And I would like to welcome the panel, but of course also welcome Your Excellency, the Minister of the Jordanian Ministry for Digital Economy and Entrepreneurship. It's a great pleasure having you, underlining the importance of the topic today. I want to welcome Dr. Afnan Alshuaiby. She's the Executive Director of the Women Development Organization, which is a specialized institution of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. I want to welcome also Samir Mubarak, sitting next to her. He's the chairman of Nafith Logistics. It's a Jordan headquartered company developing and operating technology-driven services in trade and transport. I want to welcome Mrs. Anna Brailsford. She's the CEO of Code First Girls, which is a social enterprise from the UK, aiming to reduce the gender diversity gap in tech by giving more women the opportunity to learn new skills and pursuing careers in tech. And I would like to welcome Ms. Justina Bieliauskaite. I practiced before, project director at the European Digital SME Alliance, which is the largest network of ICT small and medium enterprises in Europe. And before we get started, I would actually like to welcome each of you here in the room and actually also congratulate you because you made the right choice. This is probably the most important panel that you'll visit. You maybe say, okay, you know, thank you. Great that you agree. I think maybe some of you will think, okay, there's sessions on the tech revolution in artificial intelligence, on the metaverse, another tech revolution on blockchain. We just listened in the previous session here. But think about it. Have you been in any revolution, or have you seen any revolution that has taken place without revolutionaries? So that's something that we would like to discuss today. And actually, we see in tech business that there's a lot of studies emerging left and right that show that there's a huge need for skills and for gender diversity in teams. So a study by Korn Ferry that I would like to quote finds that by 2030, there's going to be a human talent shortage of more than 85 million people globally. 85 million, that's about twice the population of Saudi Arabia, or around 8 times the population of Jordan. So this is really a big topic. Also, the same study found that if this is left unchecked in 2030, there will be about 8.5 trillion US dollars in unrealized annual revenue. You might say, okay, this is a lot of numbers, there's a lot of studies, they calculate left and right, but also if we see surveys amongst CEOs of big firms by Deloitte and Fortune in 2021, they found that the number one priority of CEOs is not access to capital, it's not access to a good regulatory environment, it's not access to market, but it's about attracting and retaining talent. And actually with this I would like to kick off the discussion and invite you, Anna, to tell us a little more, because you work with those CEOs of the big firms. So why are they looking for the light switch? Why are big tech businesses seeking specifically women to hire in the businesses?
Well, let's kick off by talking about the consequences of not involving women. On a very basic level, we have to create products that are representative of our society, of our customers, and our shareholders. Otherwise, there's very serious consequences. I'm going to ask the room, can someone suggest a consequence of creating something that's not representative of society in a product? Anybody? Come on, you can do this. Bit of participation. Come on, someone's got to go for this. No one. Right. Okay, I'll give you a consequence. Crash test dummies, right? And everybody read the book called Hello World by Hannah Fry. In that book, she describes the consequences of crash test dummies being based on the male body. As a woman, you are statistically far more likely to die in a car accident because all of our data points are based from test crash dummies that are based on male bodies. Can anybody tell me when they think the first female crash test dummy was introduced with those data points? Any idea? Last week, 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, we created the first female crash test dummy, and therein lies the problem. Literally, you're far more likely to die as a woman in a car accident as a result. Now, that's a very basic, scary introduction, but what it does is it shows us the importance of data points. It shows us the importance of involving women in the creation of products. When I started Code First Girls, I very much got this response of, oh, that's a really nice D&I initiative, right? A really fluffy, nice thing to do to involve women. The narrative has shifted dramatically in the space of 3 years. Not only is it about a company's competitive advantage, so we have to get women into the types of roles that we're talking about. We have to involve women in making our future, making the products of our future. But it's also about things like national security as well. So to give you an idea from an organizational perspective, in the UK alone, by 2025, we're looking at one qualified woman for every 115 roles by 2025. So organizations are starting to understand that basically the higher education system can't keep up with the number of women that are actually needed in software and data types of roles. So companies are starting to see, hang on, this is integral for a competitive advantage. If we can involve more women, we can make better products, we can deliver better value for our shareholders, and we can be more innovative in our problem solving. What does it mean at a national security level? Well, the past 2 years, Code First Girls have actually been supplying all of the talent to the UK security services. So GCHQ, MI5, MI6. I wasn't allowed to talk about that for a very long time because it was top secret. A month ago, the security services in the UK published why the relationship with Codified Girls was so important, why putting women at the heart of our security services is so important. Their feedback were things like, for example, involving women at the front line actively reduces the terrorism threat to the UK. It actively reduces organised crime online. There's so many things where by involving women and challenging the status quo, challenging the way people think, actively means we have more innovative problem solving, and as a result, the UK is safer. So that, like I said, things have shifted away from talking about this is a nice to have, let's tick some boxes, to actually let's make some change, let's innovate, and let's be the most competitive that we can be on the world stage.
Great, thank you, Anna. So basically big businesses, but also big institutions, as you mentioned, the Secret Service, etc. For them, it's a paramount item in terms of, also product development, innovation, or even a matter of national security. Thank you for sharing that example. So this is very big businesses or very big companies that you were talking about, right? So maybe, Justina, we can turn to you. You are representing the European Digital SME Alliance, which is a network of 30 national and international networks in turn of SMEs in the digital space. And you represent basically, or your organization, 45,000 small and medium-sized enterprises in Europe. So do also small businesses need diverse teams, or is this a luxury problem or luxury opportunity for bigger businesses and institutions?
The answer is clearly yes. Small and medium-sized enterprises do need women. And first and foremost, not only for the sake of business, but because small companies are usually local, regional, they are the ones closer to us as a community. So in a way, the business that we do in our community is a mirror that reflects us as community. So if we will have an ICT SMEs that work locally, only male workforce, what will that say about us as a society? So of course, first of all and foremost, we need that to represent what we believe in. And if you imagine yourself as a local small company, not ICT company, because I represent the drivers of innovation, ICT companies, but if you imagine there is female-led business, a crafts business somewhere, which we have a lot, millions in Europe, and this business decides to digitalize. What do we do? Of course, we first do not go to big companies, because first we don't have money, they don't know about these big companies even sometimes. So we go to somebody next door who does something in IT and asks, okay, I want to be modern, what do I do? So imagine if this is a female-run company and there are only males, so that would create some kind of barrier, that would create an illusion for a female that, well, that IT guy is next door, it's something for male. Since I never see a female coming in, I don't see any females working there, then probably that's not for me because it doesn't feel like something I could do, right? So it's extremely important to be able to reflect also the needs of our community, which is diverse, which is 50-50. So that's from more societal point of view. And from business point of view, I can only add to what Anna has been saying. There has been a study by Amsterdam University that says that diverse teams are around 20-30% more likely to make good decisions, good business decisions, if there is a gender diversity in the team. So of course it's also about competitiveness and efficiency levels of SMEs, since we already have difficulties in competition, competing with big tech solutions. Of course it's very, very important that we do everything internally to enhance the businesses and to ensure and maximize the way they work, to be able to compete simply. As simple as that. And then finally, of course, also what Anna said, it's all about developing products that are used and needed for everyone. So not only 50% of society, products that would work for 100% of us. And one final thing, we lack 2 million of ICT professionals in Europe at the moment. So if we only tap the potential of males, we will never get enough of ICT professionals for our SMEs. Because young graduates, by default, usually try to run to big tech. Because of course, big name in a CV is a nice thing. Big tech feels like a nice career I can do, more international perhaps. And many graduates are just not aware of benefits working for SMEs or startups. So if we have to compete with big tech, for SMEs it's hard to attract talent. And if we only compete already in 50% of population, then these will simply not be able to contain the business.
Thank you, Justina. So it's a matter of talent, but also a matter of accessing markets and innovation also for small businesses, and maybe sometimes even more important, as you just mentioned. Thank you. Dr. Afnan, maybe we can involve you. Now we heard a bit on the perspective of businesses, and it would be great to hear a bit more from a government public perspective. You represent the Women Development Organization, which is a specialized institution of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, and if I'm not mistaken, with 18 member states, mainly in the Middle East and Africa. And the organization, or your institution, was established very recently, only last year, while the Organization of Islamic Cooperation dates back to 1969. So why did the governments decide to establish this institution, and why now?
Good morning, everybody. First of all, I want to thank everybody for being here today after such a long day yesterday and making it to the session. I also want to thank His Excellency for taking the time of coming to this session specifically. It shows the importance of the leadership in women empowerment. I have a question for you, Diana. Please. We're all women over here. Why did you skip the gentleman?
Because we want to give him a lot of space to talk afterwards.
I was just wondering. I mean, you were taking it by, I thought I was going to be last. You should be upset. So, as Diana said, WDO, Women Development Organization, is a newly established organization. It's an independent organization under the umbrella of the Islamic Cooperation. The Islamic Cooperation, it exists of 56 plus countries. Of those, for the past year, about 18 countries have been members with WDO. The main objective of the organization is women empowerment. Now, the word women empowerment, many of you would think that, okay, so what? What do women want to accomplish more than what they have accomplished? What do we need more to do so women can reach places? Now, that's a question that cannot be answered, a general answer, because each and every country, each and every society has different needs and different objectives. And this is why I don't really have a specific answer for everybody. However, I think at this time and age, women have reached a level where I can say that we have accomplished a lot of what we want. There is a gap between the genders. However, I think we're starting to close that gap. It's getting better and better and better. But I think also we as women have participated in being where we are and slowing the path that we're moving towards, because we're always sounding vulnerable and saying we haven't reached, we haven't got where we are. I mean, in every world, in every society, not everybody is going to reach the top, and not everybody is going to maintain at the bottom. It takes a lot to reach where you want to reach, depending on what your objectives are in life. So here, in this conference, it's all about, when I was asked and invited to come over here, I said, what's the link between what I do and between ICT? And looking around today, everything is moving toward digitization, everything is becoming more and more sophisticated and IT, if I may say, technology. So how can we help and how can we support women in reaching to that level? I think, and we've been debating this a lot yesterday with some of my colleagues and friends, have women reached a good place within this sector? I have personally got two different answers. Some say yes, some say no. And the reason I say yes, no, is I don't see a lot of women. So what are the chances that when you're, this is not the best example, when your computer breaks down in the office, what are the chances that a lady comes in and fixes your computer? I've never seen. So 1% is not a good percentage. Now, what are the odds that if your computer is hacked, the hacker is a lady? We're good. We don't hack computers. So again, I mean, this is a debate. I think I need to do, and my team, we need to do more research to see if this is a fact, if we need to do more, and how we can do this. I'm not going to go more than that. I'm sure, Diana, you have more questions.
Thank you, Dr. Afnan. So there's different perspectives, and you already mentioned that also between the countries there's different status where they stand, and also you already raised in one item that hopefully we have enough time to also address what's the role of society and perceptions. Thank you. Then maybe, last but not least, we have our colleague Samir. Thank you for joining us, and of course, first we are grateful that you joined this all-women panel, so thank you for being with us. And second, can you share with us maybe why a diverse team is important for your company specifically, and also what you do about it? So we talked a little about generally, you know, there's a lot of studies, there's a lot of exchange that we have with the ecosystem, but your company really, had a specific reason why to invest in gender diversity and also specific approaches. If you could share that with us, that would be really great. Thank you.
Thank you. Our company works in a special niche sector of logistics. We help governments streamline movement of cargo, and we use a lot of technology in that space as well. And some of it is IoT. We even now are using blockchain in Oman, and we even use a lot of AI, specifically deep vision. And we have a big lab with IT, but we also as a company have a huge operation in 3 countries of the MENA, and with hundreds of employees in each of the locations. The locations are Jordan, specifically in the south of Jordan, and in Aqaba, and the other one is in the south of Iraq, in Qasr port, and the third is in Oman, but Oman at large, Sultanate of Oman. Now, with that background, our company has embarked on a drive to include women as part of D&I, diversity and inclusion, since the drive was very strong since 2018, but the direction was there before that, and or 2017 to be specific. But before that, I'll just give you a small anecdote. We have a woman CEO in the company, and she's sitting here. And we started trying to include women. In our first project in 2007, we inherited 300 male employees from one of the projects. And we started wanting to include women back then in 2008, 9, 10. And we had suffered in our call center responding to truck drivers, we had suffered that the length of each call was quite long. We introduced women in the call center, and immediately the call period dropped significantly. Not because there was, let's say, productivity issues, but there were productivity enhancements, significant, because people now were not chatting, just social chatting, because there was a driver who's always a man, a truck driver, and women who were responding, so they were directly getting to the point, solving the problem, finalizing, and that's it. So that was our first experience of how we can gain from including women in operations, in real life operations. We are in a sector where women are not fully represented or not fully included or not even included. It's mostly men, and it's mostly there has very little effort in this sector. Of course, in IT, we face less of a problem, but we still face a problem. We faced an issue in 2017 and 18, whereby even in our IT department, which we have R&D, we have a lot of software development, we have around 50 people, we saw things like male managers putting certain sticks in the wheel in front of their women colleagues. And just because of their own social backgrounds and social stigmas. And that was luckily, solved. But the most importantly is how was permanently solved, not temporarily solved, is by introducing policies. We worked with multiple organizations like the World Bank, Al-Mashriq Initiative, and we had been changing our internal policies to cater for that everybody knows the policies, and we've communicated the policies, disseminated them across the organization, made sure everybody understands them. When they use the HR system, they're there in front of them, and we started seeing the impact. The impact is economic, and I will move from 2008 to today. We are hiring in our IT department. And in that hiring, we need 10 more new people. If we just limit these to males, we'll probably not be able to find the 10 people in Jordan, by the way. The pool of talent includes men and women equally, and they both graduate from universities, and we know from studies that women achieve better in universities. So it's a pool of talent that we're not harnessing properly if your policies exclude women or are uncomfortable for women to join the organization. So we need that talent. We can only get it by changing the way we work and by having a comfortable place for women. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Samir. So I think your statement, it's not for charity, but the impact is economic. I think it's something that's very important to hear here, because often, it's about, women empowerment, it's something, being nice to the women. So it's really a company example here also in the MENA region where there's economic sense behind it, and also in terms of accessing a wider talent pool, increasing productivity. So thank you very much for showing that, what that means on the ground. Maybe we already moved a little bit towards how we can turn on the light, and there I would like to involve again Anna at Code First Girls. You actually work heavily on the topic of how to mobilize female tech talent for businesses. Maybe you can explain a little bit more about your approach and also for us to learn from. Thank you.
Sure. So just to give you an idea of how big this skills gap is, even if we built one university a day for the next 5 years, we're still not going to be able to address how big this global skills gap is in technology. That's how, quite frankly, scary it is from a skills gap perspective. In terms of what Code First Girls do is we work backwards from jobs and from skills that employers most need by region. It's not just UK, we're international, but we're highly localized. So what we do is we have a globally consistent approach, but we start to understand where employers are hiring, what they're hiring against, and what they most need. Now, that traditionally, at least in the UK, isn't usually an approach to education. It's education first, and then you might think about jobs afterwards. What we do is we start with employment, we start with what employers most need, and we understand what that skill gap is going to look like over the next 5 years by region. And then we teach the women those skills based on the jobs that are going to become available. Why are we doing that? Why do we need to do that? Well, in the UK, and I know many other regions across Europe as well, there's just simply not enough women studying computer science at university. It's plateaued at about 17% over the last 5 years. When you then transfer that figure to the workforce, it doesn't take a genius to work out, only about 17% of the workforce in technology is women as well. So something is going wrong when women are picking their university choices. They're not picking computer science. So what Code First Girls did is that we went out to 50 universities and we said, okay, what if you can get a job in technology, but you don't actually have to study computer science at university? What if we create the world's leading alternative to the computer science degree on campus, and also to women that are already in jobs that might want a career switch and move over to technology. So what we did is we gave women a vehicle to be able to change their mind and to think about tech careers at a slightly later date. And what we realized as a result of that is the level of conversion was very, very significant. So we take 3 data points in deciding what skills to teach. We take the data points from over 50 universities to understand academically what's on the cutting edge. We take the data points from the 100,000 women that we have trained for free to understand the skills they most want to learn and the types of jobs they would most like to do. And then we talk to the 100 companies that we work with and place women in to understand the skills that are going to be most needed over the next 5 years. We collate those data points, and that's how we decide what we're going to teach.
How many people have you trained so far? How many women?
Just under 100,000. And it's all free. Everything's free. So 87% of women say that putting a cost against technology education is completely prohibitive from a woman entering a career. So everything is funded, and it's funded working backwards from the employer. So the employer funds the education, and we have a reinvestment model. So for every 1 woman that is placed, we teach at least 10 to 15 women in local communities of the employer's choice to make sure that we locate the women with the very, very best potential. So they don't need to come at this with anything. We're there to assess their potential. So it's a local community reinvestment model.
Great, thank you for sharing that. And actually, if I may share, I think your business model is so proven that you recently received, I think, £4.5 million, is that correctly, of investment for your enterprise, also women-led business. So, mabruk on that, or congratulations. And so this is, you work mostly with bigger businesses, right? And so I want to turn again, because there's always the question, okay, big business, they can invest in it. So the question here is again to you, Justina, what's the role of smaller businesses? Is something like that luxury for big businesses, or how can small businesses work on involving more women in their workforce?
So on one hand, it might be sometimes easier for small businesses, since it's much easier to change the company culture, the practices, the processes that are in the company, to adjust it, to change it, involve more new processes. It's a bit easier since you don't need to do it across many departments, many countries, many different mindsets, let's say. So in this regard, I think SMEs are much more flexible and agile. The problem is perhaps the mindset. So we definitely need both role models, female role models, such as the ones in your community, Anna. For sure we need to keep showing them, let them speak and talk to other women. But we also need economically viable examples, the ones as Samir told us now, to encourage companies to implement this change. When specifically for SMEs, I think we have one interesting example, since they really struggle to attain the workforce, and we have this crazy gap that also we spoke already about. We have one SME in the Netherlands that works in very specific field. So the solution we have, it's the only one in the European market. It deals with IP for CAD files. So there was apparently a security issue, because sometimes you have a value chain where you need to share the CAD file between the creator of the file, to send it to a few different companies, to send it to client to negotiate and so on. And sometimes there are IP issues that are hard to ensure that the file would not be copied. And the company implemented blockchain technology to overcome the issue, and that's currently still the only solution in the European market managed like that, and very efficient solution. So clearly the company could become in a daytime a scale-up. We got a lot of investment, and we got absolutely impossible to understand the amount of requests and clients coming really on the basis of hours, but we just could not do anything because we could not hire anyone, because the problem here is the intersection of IT in general, blockchain and IP, which are all a bit of different matters, and specialists for that, we were just not in the market at all. So what the company has done, the founder is female, and she said, okay, the only way to attain these talents is if I train these talents. So she tried to go to universities, recruit some students and train them. And she said, okay, it's not efficient if I train them, then who runs the company? And the solution that she found was to create an app. And she created it specifically with an interest to attract female. So she consulted with a lot of specialists, sociologists, edtech specialists, how to create a gamified app that would also be adapted to women needs in learning, and so on and so forth. And the app now basically allows you to complete the training courses that are basically adjusted based on what she has been teaching students that come from university in certain skill gaps. Also, she tried to understand a little bit what other companies, what her peers need, and she introduced training courses there. By completing these courses, people get points, and with points, we can buy challenges. Challenges in the app are proposed by her company, so real issues that we had in the past, and the people in training have to basically complete the challenges, and the ones that complete challenges with most success, she ultimately hires them. When she expanded this app, opening it to other startups so they can offer their own challenges, which later being resolved can show them basically who could be a right fit to hire. And some people have different skills, and we know that especially there is a difference of certain ways of resolving problems that often are done by female and male. So different companies might have a bit of different needs to resolve different problems they have. So by going into this app, we can actually even see which solution would fit their environment better. So that's a good example of very, very creative and very innovative SME who really created something super new and a community even just to resolve its own problem. That's the agility and capacity of SME to adapt.
Great, thank you very much for sharing the specific example. It's a need was seen, and then a reaction or almost a new business model was developed on top of it, it sounds like. So a bit of potential. And maybe just a side note, especially for those of you that represent SMEs here. Today actually, this afternoon, there will be an announcement of Intage on a new exciting initiative in terms of supporting gender diversity management, especially in small and medium enterprise businesses. So pay attention to that this afternoon. And then now we talked again about business, how they can implement more gender diversity. And Dr. Afnan, maybe I can turn again to you. And maybe you can tell us a little bit about what governments can do, or maybe your vision of your work for your newly established organization. What do you aim to do in terms of promoting women economic empowerment?
I think governments play a major role in supporting and helping any project or anything that we're trying to do, especially on the level of women empowerment. However, we cannot depend on governments everything. We need the private sector to support the mission of the organization, of the projects that we're trying to do. As I mentioned earlier, we are a new organization, but we're hoping that we can partner with other organizations globally. So although we are under the umbrella of the Islamic Corporation, however, we are trying to position ourselves on a global level. We're working with the global entities. We already, I'm not so sure I can say this, but we will be hopefully signing with UN Women. We're working with such organizations. However, it will take time because we need to do a lot of research to understand each and every country's objective. Countries differ. And again, I don't like to use the word challenges because not every country has a challenge that is negative. There are positive challenges as well as there are negative challenges. So not all women are vulnerable, if I may say, but there are women who need the extra help. I personally need a lot of help in many things. And I'll just give a small example, which I shared with some in the past 24 hours. So you're in a position where you say, great, I made it, but you want to be on a board. How many women in this room are on boards? So in a session where we're supposed to be talking about women empowerment, I literally saw less than 5 hands go up. So why is this happening? Are women less important on being on boards? What's the criteria for women to be on a board? This is just an example. Again, I was looking at a magazine a couple of months ago where they showcased the 50 most powerful CEOs in the Middle East. Of those 50, how many women were they? I think 2. Exactly. So you know exactly what I'm talking about. So if we have a challenge, and I like to use the word challenge, I'm talking about women. What is it? What's the challenge that women have that doesn't get them to places, or it becomes more difficult and challenging for them to reach those places? So this is part of what we're trying to do. We're trying to support what governments are doing, what countries are doing. We're trying to change negative policies. We're trying to update policies, and we're trying to work with all these countries for the beneficiary of women and girls. So I hope that we can reach that objective very soon. I think we're on the right track because we have amazing partners. And, you know, they say it takes 2 to tango. I think it takes 1 million hands to clap and tango.
Thank you, Dr. Afnan. I think that's a really inspiring statement. And also in terms of things are moving, it might be worth also mentioning that Modi actually, under the great leadership of Your Excellency, is also working on establishing a women empowerment unit. So in different areas in Jordan, also in the public sector, things are moving. So much comment to that. We're almost running out of time. It's a bit shocking because it's a really interesting topic, and I just want to touch on what you said, Dr. Afnan, and turn to Samir. It takes 1 million to make things change. Samir, maybe you can comment briefly on maybe also specifically from your work context, what you experienced. What is the role of men in this equation? We often talk about female empowering. They need better skills. They need to be inspired, etc. How did the rest of the company react? What do you see the broader community's role in this?
That's an interesting question.
Seconds.
I didn't see that coming. I think the role of men are not to stand in the way, not to create glass ceilings for women in the organizations. Most importantly, I think you need to accept change and instill change as well. Into what you do. I think it's most importantly is for us as men at the helm or even as part of the leadership of organizations is to see the opportunity. And if change doesn't happen, and I heard, small businesses, large businesses, but I think we work in the, not in the main metropolitan cities of the regions we work in. We work everywhere. And the change needs to happen also in the governorates, in the remote places of the cities, and the cultures that we see have certain cultural issues. And we face them. In a survey done by the World Bank and the IFC on our staff directly, 62% of the responders said that the main thing not enabling them to work as women in our business was primarily cultural, 13% religious, and the rest is logistics because they can't drive, they can't. So we need to also remove these challenges so that we can have more inclusion in our organizations. This is something that we have worked on really well. We have implemented the policies, monitored the implementation of the policies, and made sure that actually measured what we had done, what's the impact. And I can tell you, in a sector where globally we have a 25% turnover, we actually managed ours was 17% in the southern part of Iraq of employee turnover. We now only have 6.5% turnover. So much better retention of knowledge in the company, much better HR policies and so on. And we're seeing now women rise in the ranks and having better whether supervision or managerial positions. This is something, if the change happens at the roots, the change doesn't only happen at the center, but also at the governorates and with that, I can tell you 90% of our staff surveyed recently said they would recommend for a woman to work in our company. So this was real change for us, something that we measured. So thank you for the question.
Samir, that's quite impressive, and I encourage you also, there has been a couple of case studies, I think, on your company to read them. It's quite impressive in terms of numbers and real proof of what has been achieved. I see it blinking, time's up, but I just want to summarize. I think what we've learned today, that there's a proven business need of more gender diversity, right? It's not just charity, it's proven business need. We saw that there's an untapped opportunity of involving women in many ways. It's about education, about training, inspiration, but also it's about joint action. So it's not just about women doing something, but it's about the employers, about the broader community. And talking about action, I would like to invite each of you to complement the sentence to improve gender diversity or to promote further gender diversity. Justina, do you want to start?
Be the change that you want to happen, each of you.
I think a little less conversation, a bit more action.
Thank you.
Start at the family.
Thank you.
Call for collaboration. I just want to end with something very important. We have an Arabic saying, وَرَأْكُ الرَّجُلِ الْعَظِيمِ امْرَأَةً. I want to say behind every successful woman is a man that stood beside her, behind her, supported her. So we have to honestly get rid of men, women. We complement each other. Once we reach that, everything is going to be okay. Thank you.
Thank you. So let's all follow our impulse and turn on the light if the light is half off. Thank you.